Letitia James is speaking out, and the timing is somewhat interesting. The timing is interesting. She's just filed another suit against Donald Trump. Hard to keep up with all of these suits, but I'll tell you, she's really losing it in this. In this little speech that she just gave moments ago, she really shows how unhinged she is getting. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to see this because we've seen her before start to get off track, but now that these mortgage allegations have come out, I think this is a whole new Letitia James. Watch her freaking out.
And you want me to sit in my seat and stand idly by and allow this craziness to happen? You can come after me if you want, but you elected me to stand up. You elected me to use the law. You elected me to go to court. You elected me to continue to challenge this administration. You elected me to stand up for the least of God's children. You elected me to continue fighting on. And I will fight on.
I will fight for you. Yeah. You know what? Letitia James is fighting for, let's be very, very clear, for herself and herself only. That's the only person she's ever fought for. I mean, what do you think's going on when she's getting a mortgage? Allegedly. In one state, even though she lives and works in another, as the Attorney General, for goodness sakes, of the state of New York, and yet she's off in Virginia trying to get a special fancy schmancy loan, courtesy of U.S. taxpayers, right? We're the ones that suffer the burden in that case. This wasn't a private transaction between a bank like Deutsche Bank and somebody applying for a loan like one Donald Trump. No, this was actually something that's backed by taxpayers. I mean, that's what's so wild about it. It's so much worse. The allegations against Letitia James are so much worse than what she was trying to go after Donald Trump for. And by the way, managed to get, courtesy of a wackadoo judge, some $500 million for. I mean, they're still tallying up the interest. They still haven't thrown that one out of the court. I don't know where the Second Court of Appeals is on that. It's quite obvious how that should have been decided. But nonetheless, none of it really matters because guess what? This lady's going down, and it's because of the mortgage fraud allegations. Once all that comes up and out, I'm not sure really she has a leg to stand on at all. Let's go to Jonathan Turley, who spoke about this just moments ago on Fox. Listen in.
Well, it is par for the course. You know, James has always used her office to target opponents, whether it's Trump or the NRA. She's very selective and she's very open in politicizing that office. And this is the latest of a series of lawsuits by Democratic leaders around the country. And the problem for the Trump administration is they file before favorable courts in blue states, and they're getting these national injunctions. And it's gotten to the point of being absolutely absurd. It means that a president cannot govern unless you can basically run the course with 677 district court judges, any one of which can issue a national injunction. So you've got to win every case 677-0 if you actually want to implement policy. Well, the justices have said, including liberal justices like Justice Kagan, that this is truly insane. And this is just the latest such lawsuit to try to limit what this president can do.
Well, let's talk about how much this could slow the administration down, because now she's calling up all of these AGs in blue states and asking them to join her on this lawsuit against HHS. I'm not sure who's going to want to jump in on that when she's under investigation herself. But how tangled up can this get for this administration when, like you said, I mean, they're literally facing injunctions and legal action, I mean, across the board?
Well, people need to think about the implications of what is happening. It means that you can be elected as a president, but effectively the presidency is going to be run at the discretion of district court judges issuing national or universal injunctions. That's not really how this is supposed to work. And the constitutional basis for these orders are extremely dubious. Some of these orders I find to be overtly unconstitutional, but they have to work their way through the system. And And the way what these Democrats know is that in the usual course of things, they don't leave a president his third year before he can actually start to implement policy. And that's what's so insane about this. Now, on May 15th, the Supreme Court's going to look at national injunctions. And many of us are hoping that Chief Justice Roberts and the court will finally bring some semblance of order to all of this and deter these district court judges. Because we have a system that's run on people being able to vote in presidents to effectuate change, including looking for waste and in this case, downsizing government. We've got to get back to that. And so
we got to get back to that. And you can't have the likes of Letitia James getting in the way at every single turn. She's very proud of the fact that she announced some 100 lawsuits during Trump's first administration and has every intention, I guess, of doubling or tripling that right about now. So in this case, she's going after him for the HHS funding. He's made the point, and his administration has made the point, that they don't want to turn over any funding just blindly to New York unless there's actual justification for it. So they're asking New York for justification for the funds. They're also asking that New York play ball in terms of making sure that the arrests that they want to have happen, New York does not get in the way of impeding that. And that's been a whole other issue, right? With the impediment going on and the inability for ICE to effectively do its job and people, celebrating that. Think about the Judge Dugan out in Wisconsin, and you actually have the left celebrating that, even though she's a judge who's clearly in violation of the law. Somebody's brought into her courtroom on allegations of domestic violence. And instead of actually seeing that through, and by the way, cooperating with ICE, she never charges, she never hears the case, instead lets him out the back door. That's like a Letitia kind of move. And don't kid yourself. This is all politics at this point, ladies and gentlemen. This is the left on steroids with TDS that's gone really bad. She has wanted nothing but to go after Donald Trump from the very beginning. The fact that he's now there in the presidency sure scares her, I think, because she's realizing all that mortgage stuff and fraud that is being alleged is coming back to haunt her, but she uses this however she can, right? This is a political beast we're talking about.
I will respond to these baseless allegations at the appropriate time and in the appropriate way, but I am 100% confident that it will not result in any criminal indictment or action against me.
Really, I think that's a bit of baloney. I think that's a bit of your political spin. Yet again, Letitia, we've seen the political spin over and over and over again, have we not?
The President of the United States has complained that I'm engaging in some sort of political witch hunt, that I've got some personal vendetta against him, that I campaigned against him. That is not true. This illegitimate president who sits in the White House.
That president, because he's not my president, he's an illegitimate president. His days are numbered. His days are numbered.
We've got to get ready to mobilize, and we've got to get ready to agitate and irritate until victory is won, but more importantly, until Trump is defeated. We will all rise up and resist this.
Okay, so that's her thing, right? Now she's risking losing her license, her law license, not just because of the suit that she brought against Donald Trump, which was for political reasons only, but now, of course, because of the mortgage fraud allegations, which are pretty darn serious. So I get that, she's going to stand in the way. You're going to have district courts standing in the way, and you get Turley explaining that we can't really have that. And come May 15th, the Supreme Court, well, hopefully we will be deciding on some kind of measure to stop that, because the political insanity has just reached a level that makes it impossible, frankly, for our lawmakers to govern, including the man who Americans elected as president of the United States. But again, back to Tish, because Tish has got a real problem on her hands, if you ask me, vis-a-vis these allegations. In a new letter that is asking the New York Bar Association to look at her ethical track record, they're filing an ethical complaint, and they're pointing out that while serving as Attorney General for the state of New York, Ms. James purchased a home in Norfolk, Virginia. In the process, declared that she intended, quote, to occupy this property as her principal residence. This meant that she would be a full-time resident of Norfolk, Virginia. The obvious reason for making this certification would be to, they say, obtain a lower interest rate on the mortgage loan. Additionally, on another occasion, Ms. James appears to have misrepresented the number of dwelling units in the multi-dwelling building that she owned, she continued to misrepresent the number of dwelling units in subsequent years to obtain additional benefits to which she was not entitled, including a mortgage refinancing through a federally backed lender at a rate much lower than would typically have been offered in the private market. And yet she was after Donald Trump, right? Saying he can't get a lower loan rate in the private market because somehow it's going to affect the overall common good of society. No way. I mean, the judges in the appellate court were like, where's your victim, lady? Like, no harm, no foul. Nobody was hurt here. Everybody made money. And by the way, Deutsche Bank said they'd do the deal again. So what you got? In your particular case, that's a whole other thing. That was federal money that you were using. So Letitia, I fear that you're going to go down. You're going to go down in history. And you can complain all you want. You can get out there with Sharpton and channel all your, Rev Sharpton energy. Do you take lessons or something on the side? It's not going to do a bit of good. Reminder, subscribe, share, like. We got more on this tomorrow.